The National Museum of Australia's latest exhibition, The Silk Road, features the story of an ancient trade route that stretched between China and the Middle East.
This exhibition was originally prepared by the American Natural History Museum and has been travelling to various locations around the world with partner museums that contributed to its development. And now it's here in Canberra. We've had two previous exhibitions from the Natural History Museum.
The Silk Road's opening festival drew visitors' numbers over 5,500, causing hosts to stagger the number of people entering the exhibition.
Well, it's called the Silk Road, but silk wasn't the only thing that was traded. It was a whole range of commodities, minerals, glass, food, and culture, language, both spoken languages and written languages.
Well, every exhibition is an experiment, so we weren't exactly sure what to expect when we opened this exhibition. But it has proved a success, and I think that has two reasons. One is that it's identifying an area of the world that Australians rarely come to grips with. So it's new, it's refreshing, and it's part of Australia's intellectual heritage as well. The second aspect is it's a very entertaining exhibition. The way it's been designed and developed and the way it's been built is fun, which makes it particularly attractive to families.
My favourite part about the Silk Road was probably the sections with the water clock and the astrolabes.
The fact that it was interactive, like it really drew people in and kids really seemed to enjoy it.
Its only Australian venue, the Silk Road will be open until the 29th of July. Madeline Power, Canberra. The ACT is set to gain a subacute facility, dealing with patients that need rehabilitation as opposed to immediate treatment at the Canberra and Calvary hospitals.
I think because UC's doing, they've got their nurses, their allied health professionals, we've got Signadu and CIT doing a range of health-related courses as well. I mean, I was just looking at the figures for graduate nurses coming in next year. We had, 190 people apply for 100 positions, and most of those were local students. About 70% of them were local students, and some coming from New South Wales. So, we're actually oversubscribed for some of the positions, which is a great position to be in.
Katie Gallagher announced that the new facility will be built next to the University of Canberra. The government has set aside $4 million for the planning and design phase. Labor has promised 500 new nurses for the ACT over the next 4 years.
The difficulty, of course, not just for subacute hospitals, but for the health services throughout Australia, acute, subacute and community, is that Health Workforce Australia has predicted that there'll be a workforce shortage of about 110,000 nurses by 2025. And so that's something that we need to do in the ACT. So we do actually need to grow our own. So we need to think about having an increase in undergraduate places.
Madeline Power, Next Act, Canberra.
The Greens have faced a major decline in votes in the recent ACT election. The party lost a third of their voters, falling from 16% to less than 11%, winning a single seat. Professor of Political Science John Warhurst believes many factors have contributed to the Greens' loss this year, including the lack of options and the decision to side with Labor.
Shane Rattenbury chose to join the cabinet as a minister, so it was at that level of choice. I don't think, given the three parties and what they stood for and the campaign, which was basically the Liberal Party against Labor and the Greens, that the Greens had any choice but to support Labor.
Professor Warhurst says the Greens' inability to connect with voters may be the reason for their decline in popularity.
4 was the high water mark for the Greens. They did extremely well, and the 4th one was pretty much of a fluke. But even so, to be reduced from 4 to 1 and to lose 5% of your vote, which is effectively what they did, so 15% down to 10, they lost a third of their vote. They were left in a very perilous position. I suppose they were fortunate that they held the balance of power still, so they have a position in the government, but they'll have to investigate just why they did as badly as they did. They were left in a very perilous position. I suppose they were fortunate that they held the balance of power still, so they have a position in the government, but the Greens Australia-wide are probably not at the peak that they were back in 2008. I think there's a bit of a disillusionment with minority government. You've certainly got to listen to what the public want. You've got to be attuned to the public. Stick to your own principles, of course, but where things you're advocating are just not resonating with the public, then you've got to do something about that. And then there's the question of getting your message out to the broader community.
Being the balance of power between the Labor and Liberal parties, Shane Rattenbury's decisions will hold significant value for the ACT government over the next 4 years. Melanie Catanzariti and Madeline Power reporting for Next Act Canberra. In the lead up to the ACT election, the Liberals have announced their plans to improve road safety and transport in Canberra. ACT Shadow Transport Services Minister Alastair Coe announced that if elected, a Liberals government will allocate up to $700 million to improve Canberra's road and transport infrastructure.
That'll go to maintenance and upgrades and the development of new roads infrastructure here in the ACT.
Coe says the Labor Party has not done enough to cater to Canberra's ever-changing nature.
Canberra is a growing place and we need to plan for that growth. 10 or 20 years ago, Canberra's transport network was the envy of the nation. Now, particularly in the north, in Gungahlin, we're seeing major congestion on a daily basis. It's simply not good enough in a planned city for that to happen. So what the Canberra Liberals are seeking to bring to the table, if we win government on October the 20th, is a genuine plan for Canberra's growth.
Each year, every Canberra household forks out $691 for the Action Bus Company.
So the ACT government, the ACT taxpayer, is putting a huge amount of money into that service. And for that, I think we should get the best service in the country because it is, in effect, the most expensive service in the country. Instead, what we're seeing is a substandard service.
Labor has announced that 20 new articulated buses will replace the ageing models as part of their bus replacement program. The new buses will cost $780,000 each, a total of $15.6 million. They've been funded as part of the $75 million allocated in the 2008-2009 ACT budget.
On a regular basis, we think about 15 minutes, a regular and frequent basis, such that people wouldn't necessarily need to even know a timetable. They could go out the front to the bus stop and know that they're not going to wait more than 15 minutes before they get onto their inter-town bus.
If elected, the Liberals will be running a 12-month trial of a free shuttle bus service and will cost the opposition $3 million. Coe says it will be conducted throughout Belconnen, Tuggeranong and Gungahlin and will feed into rapid bus lines to encourage people to use public transport.
It needs a little bit of work at the moment. For example, there's a lot of bus stops that don't have timetables at them, or the timetables are there and they don't display all the buses that go through that bus stop. A lot of them are running late or early, which is even worse because you completely miss it that way.
It's not too bad, but I do think we need the shuttle bus. It'll be easier, especially for people like me.
It's not too bad. It's better than what it used to be, I guess, but it's a bit annoying when they keep changing around the timetables.
With only 8% of Canberrans using the ACT bus service, the Liberals are looking at a more viable option to replace the outdated bus system. One of the main issues the current system faces is dead running, where buses are currently making trips without passengers. Dead running accounts for 19.9% of all kilometres covered by Action and is worse than the 17.4% national benchmark.
At the moment, I think the vast majority of people who are using Action buses do so because they have to, not because they necessarily want to. Hopefully the shuttle service will change that.
We really do need some improvements to the transport system in Canberra. It's just really not holding up to scratch, honestly.
Melanie Catanzariti and Madeline Power reporting for Next Act Canberra.